happy when I see you. It comes on, it makes me so happy. So to give it a minute more, this is like the weird part of doing live, just waiting, and we need some kind of like music or some kind of little thing going on. Hi Betty, how are you? Is Max there too? Hi Sandra. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit and give people a little bit more time to get on. So hi Ann. The past few days, hi Renee. Oh, hi Lucy. Oh, thanks for signing up for my class. Hi Peggy. Oh, I'm so excited to see all of you. Susan, how are you? Good. I've had a lot of people talk to me about being a little intimidated by oils, and so I wanted to do this live just so that I can share with you how I use oils. I've taken many oil painting classes. I've gone back and forth, and because I'm a little bit impatient, I always want to, play with the acrylics. They're easy to clean up. And so when I was creating this class for Jean, I really wanted to create something in oils. I find they're just so beautiful. So I'm going to show you the things that I like to use and why I like to use them. And also I'm going to do a little demo for mixing a skin tone. So I've been thinking about it all day, about how to break this down into bite-sized pieces. And I do that in the class, but there's always more to say, I think, when it comes to art supplies. So as mixed media artists, we have all these supplies. We have gessos and matte mediums and molding paste. There's so many things. And sometimes that is overwhelming in itself. So when I wanted to look at oils just as in kind of its pure form, just how can I create without having too many extra things going on and just work with the beautiful paints. So I'm going to turn the camera around a little bit and show you what I have here, and I'm just going to go through it step by step. So we're going to take a little ride. I have my paint. I have my solvent, which the only thing I use is odorless mineral spirits. And I want you to think about the odorless mineral spirits, this is Gamsol, as the water. Hi, Max. And it's what we're going to clean our brushes in, but you can also use it to thin your paint if you want to create thinner layers. So I have the Gamsol. You don't have to get this. You can also, I have this mineral spirits from the hardware store, and it works the same way to clean up my paints. However, I rather use this when I'm working on the canvas or on the oil paper. It's just a nicer quality. So you're going to pour your odorless mineral spirits into a container. So I have this little brush cleaner here, and it has a basket in it, and I pour it in, and there's the little basket, and then you can just rinse your brush just like this, and then just wipe it off on a little towel. You just clean your brush that way. So that's how I kind of work back and forth. There's also, let me put this back. I like it because it has this little lid. Sorry, this is shaking. And then there's also this bigger jar. It's less expensive. I think I got this one at Michael's. It was like $7. And it has the little coil in it. So now when you're working with your mineral spirits, I just keep them in here for a long time. It looks dirty, but it's fine. All the paint will settle at the bottom, and when it gets too much, I just pour it into a bigger jar. I have a wash tub down in my basement. When that jar, I'll keep it for, a year or so. And then I dispose of it by taking it to my paint store. I just give it to them and they have a way, because I don't want to pour that down the drain. So that's a safe practice there. So Gamsol, odorless mineral spirits, that's what you're going to clean your brush with. I also keep a little jar separate. It's just a little bit of it that I can dip my brush into to move my paint around a little bit. It's clean, and it's just I don't clean my brushes in this little jar. So that's, you just have, this is an old candle jar. So those are the only things I have. Then, all right, so I'm gonna move this out of the way and go on to this. So there are different oil mediums. You want to use this. So if you think about it, if you're working in acrylics, if you use a matte medium or a glazing liquid to open your paint, to move your paint around, you need something like that to move the paint around and to build up your layers. So there's a couple of different ones. There's the Galkide and the Galkide Light. They're very similar. And they just kind of even out your brush stroke. And there's also the walnut oil. And to be honest, I thought this was going to be, a lot healthier and safer to use. But when I started reading the directions, it has all these kind of scary warnings on it. So I don't use it very often. I was going to try this one and just see if I like it. But it talks about how you have to store your rags and in a bucket of water, and that just all makes me nervous. So that's something to think about. I use this one most of the time, the Galkide. So that's what I'm going to use tonight. So I'm going to show you how I do that. So I'm going to put that off to the side. So if that's all you need. That's, let me put this over here. Is an oil, medium, and the mineral spirits. So all I do is take the mineral spirits, and I don't fill the entire container up. I just put a little bit in and put it off to the side. So I keep this while I'm working at either one so I can rinse out my brushes. And I just spilled some. So the other thing that you're going to want is to have some little pieces of rag. So I've cut an old hand towel up. I have a few of them. I have used paper towels, but I just feel bad about using them. But this, when you're working, you can always wipe this off because you don't want to put too many mineral spirits on it as you're working. You want to keep the brush as dry as possible. So I'm always pulling the paint off, then reworking in it, which I'll demonstrate. So I keep these separate in a little drawer with my other towels for oil painting so that they're separate from everything else. All right, so now let's move this out of the way. And that's all we need there. Now, the other thing is I like to wear gloves because I'm messy when I paint. And I don't want it all over my hands. And it just makes it easier for me to clean up. I'm going to talk about my brushes. All right, so what we hear. Hi, Diane. Okay, I really love these synthetic brushes by Rosemary and Company. And I like the short flat, especially when I'm painting the portrait. You can get a harder bristle, like a hog bristle, but it's going to leave different marks in there. Hi, Maxine. And I don't like the marks that it makes for when I'm working on the face. So I really like, this is the ivory, and I have long flat, short flat, different sizes, everything from 4 to 8. And the other brush that's really wonderful for working on the portrait is a filbert because you have this really great edge. You can get in with a tiny filbert and, get the corner of the eye and just bring in very delicate marks. It's great. And I'm trying these. These are new. I just bought the pack from Amazon, and I think they were like $15. I got a pack of, 10 of them. So I'm trying them out, and I'll let you know. These were, I don't even know who they are, some random company. Okay, and then I have to have a few small brushes too for when I get into the detail work. So I'll use some rounds, and I also like these little angle brushes and these tiny little flat brushes. And these are mainly from Princeton and Company. And let's see what else. There's another little angle. So those are great to have. You want to have like a 0, just something small that you can get into the very tiny little spots towards the end of your work. So I really like these brushes. Now I have something else, and it is not like sexy art equipment, it is this. Okay, so this is a brush holder that I got at the craft store. And while I'm working with the oils, I don't want to put them, usually we keep our brushes in the water while we're working in acrylics. So what I do is while I'm working, I clean it off, I put it in here. I just rinse it in here, wipe it, and put it in this little container. That way they're standing up. I don't have to clean them every time in between. I just rinse them in the mineral spirits. So this is a good way to keep them. And when I'm ready to wash them, I just use Mrs. Meyer's. So after the big clean in the little bucket, I then go in warm water and put a little Mrs. Meyer's and wash them and reshape them. And then I let them dry. So I keep this thing, when I'm working, I keep it by me, but then I keep it by my little wash tub in the basement so that they dry out. So that is a good, you want something that your brushes are gonna stand up in, and I don't wanna keep them in with my clean brushes. Okay, that is that. So now I wanna talk about getting ready to mix colors. Hi, Mary. How are you? I miss you. I like seeing all your art on Instagram. It's always so beautiful. Oh, and very positive and joyful. And I love that about it. So I have a little piece of palette paper here. But what I usually do is work with this gray glass palette. But when I'm teaching and filming, there's a big reflection in it. But if you can get one of these, it makes cleanup so much easier. So you'll have all your paints on here, and to be honest, I'll leave them out for 1 or 2 days because you can reactivate with a little bit of mineral spirits. So when you have your paint on the palette, you just put it on there, mix it up, and then it stays there. You just reactivate it the next day. So I won't leave it too long, but maybe 2 days, and it keeps it's fine. And then I'll just take a synthetic brush, dip it into my mineral spirits, move it all along, wipe it all down, and then rinse it off. So that's a great thing to have. But right now I'm just going to use this palette paper to talk about the paint. And then we're going to do a little painting. So I have a little dish, and I'm going to take the Galkide. So this is my oil, and I'm just going to put a tiny bit in the dish. All right, so that's just going to be like your matte medium. That's kind of how I look at it. Then I have my towel. Let me put this over here just so it doesn't get on my table. And the paints that I like this brand. It's called Williamson. They have really beautiful premixed colors, and of course your main colors like permanent crimson. And I also have this yellow ochre by them, and I have this one is Daniel Smith. This is a Daniel Smith. So this Williamson, they have beautiful colors. So if you want like a novelty color, it's a great place to go. So I have, for my reds, I have this permanent crimson, and I also have a cadmium red light. And then I always have these on my palette. I have yellow ochre, raw sienna, and burnt sienna. So this is a Winsor Newton, I think, burnt sienna, raw sienna. And I love, this is like my favorite. Here. This is Charven, and it's burnt sienna, and it's a beautiful burnt sienna. And I have white, and I bought the white from Charven, but I shouldn't have because it's expensive. So really, the Dick Blick is awesome. It's fine. You get a giant tube that will last you forever. And then I wanted to try this Gamblin. It's a warm white. And you can make this by adding a speck of yellow ochre into your white. So you don't have to get this, but it does kind of warm up your color a little bit if you find like it's going too cool. If you do want a specialty white, This is really beautiful. It's a transparent white. And I will be using this in the piece I'm doing, the beekeeper. I do the little bees' wings in this, and it's also great for details on clothes. And I also did a little bit on, here, I'll pull up the painting here. So here she is. I did it on the wings so you can kind of see through the wings, and I put some on the flower and a little bit on her face. And it's just a really pretty sheer white, and it's nice to add to clothing. Another novelty color that I have is this warm gray. It's really pretty. Let me just squeeze some out so you can see. But it's kind of this purpley color, and it's great for bringing in value, darker value without going too dark. Like I did it under her chin and in her ear. So let's see, I have the Daniel Smith, and I have some Payne's Gray, Cerulean Blue, and then the hair, I didn't want to use black because it was too harsh, and I wanted to have this soft, ethereal feeling with this portrait that I created. So I use Van Dyke Brown, and then I bring in highlights with the raw sienna and the burnt sienna. Okay, so let's mix some color. So I'm going to show you how I do the skin tone. And remember, if you have questions, just leave them in the comments, and I will go through every comment and answer you. Try to help you with whatever question you have. So I want to make this feel less intimidating, the oils, if you're feeling that way. If you're just getting started, get the Arches oil paper, or if you have an old canvas, just to kind of practice. The oil paper is great. So that's what I'm gonna make a little color chart, and this is something that you can do. I'm gonna save this video on my Facebook page so you can follow along. And let's see, let's just start. I like this size brush, and I'm gonna start with just the skin tone. So you can make skin tone in any shade of red, yellow, and then adding some blue for the cool. So this is the one that I like to use because I get kind of this porcelain quality to the skin. And the alizarin crimson, or the permanent crimson, is kind of a cooler red. And if you want a warmer red, then go with the cad red. All right, so what I'm going to do is, the first thing is I'm just going to kind of wet my brush a little bit, and then I'm going to wipe it off. So I'm sorry if this is shaking. This hopefully it doesn't annoy you too much. Okay, now I'm just dipping it in the oil and putting a little spot here, and then I'm going to take some red and some of the yellow. And I'm making a base. Okay, so this is the base, and you have to kind of experiment with it and decide if it's too red or too yellow, and work with it. It's not, quite a proven science here. I think you have to go with what works for your eyes. So now I could go back in and rinse it here, but I don't want to because it's going to put more mineral spirits on my brush. So I'm just going to take my rag and I'm just going to clean it off a little bit so it's less wet. All right, so now I have this really beautiful kind of golden color, and you can take this and make it darker for darker skin tones. So I'm just going to bring a little swatch right here. So that's my first color, and I want to leave that there. Now I'm going to bring in some white. I'm just going to move it down here. Now, normally I would set up my palette, but for this demonstration, I'm just going to make it very simple so that we can kind of follow along here. So I'm going to take my palette knife, and I'm just going to take a little bit and bring it right here. And then I'm going to mix it. I find it's easier to mix with the palette knife, but then once I start painting, I use my brush anyway, but this kind of works the pigment. So I put in a lot, and I can pull it down a little bit. So you can just kind of pull from it till you get exactly the color you want. So I made quite a jump here. Now see, it's a little bit sticky. So I'm just gonna put in a little bit more oil so it moves around. So I'm getting a nice fleshy color there. That's got a nice pinkness to it. And that's what I like about the alizarin crimson, is that it gives me a kind of a pinky rosy color. There are a lot of different recipes for skin tones. So you just have to kind of find the one that works for you, but just pick one, just work with one for a while and then start experimenting with it and adding colors. So I'm just making a string of color here. So when I go to paint my portrait, I can pull paint from this little string. So you can see how the paint is very thick. And then I'll just go in and loosen it up. Needs a little bit more white. But it's getting, you can see the pinkiness of it here. Okay. So the best thing to do is just kind of practice with this first. And I don't feel like you have to make a big investment in oils. You can just pick the red, blue, and yellow that you like to use and play with that. I think having two reds is great. You want a cool red and a warm red, and my suggestion would be the cad and the alizarin, because both of those together, I'm going to show you, make a nice color for a red lip. Okay, so you can kind of get the idea here. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I want to bring in this Payne's Gray and a little touch of this cerulean blue. So let me grab my painting here. And you can see here, like in the hollow of her cheek, in the corners of her eyes, like under her nose, I have created this shadow. And I put these two together. I think it's pretty. And you can just rinse off. It's probably best to switch your brush from the warm to the cool. That's what I'm going to do. So, okay, so you want to have two brushes there. So, all right, so I'm just going to move this in here and mix it up. All right, and then I'm going to bring in some white. So now I'm making this paler without using black for the shadow or gray, which you could do. There's nothing wrong with that. I've done that many times, but I wanted a different feeling for this. Now, to continue to work on my shadow, this is what I love, is this burnt sienna. So I'm going to put it off to the side. I feel like I need a little bit more Payne's Gray in here. Put a little Payne's Gray over here. All right. Yep, that's better. So I have a nice little string there. And now I'm going to take a little bit of that burnt sienna, and it makes yet another color that I can bring to the face, like for a darker value. That's not black. It's just really beautiful. There's this reflection of the blue and the burnt sienna because it's kind of a reddy orange. And it brings a nice shadow color. And then I can just keep adding white to it and work with it. So you have a nice, and the thing that's really what I love about oils is, okay, so if I put this shadow down, then I can go back in and I can layer a little bit of this over, and it just has this beautiful blendability. So I want to show you another painting that I did. This was just a little study, but this is the Payne's Gray and cerulean blue. Then it goes into the burnt sienna and then into the flesh tones. And then I've actually layered a little bit of yellow ochre over it. So you can just keep putting your paint down and building up these beautiful layers, because it all kind of works together. It's a very organic feeling. And then I want to bring in another color here. This is raw sienna, and I will bring the raw sienna into her face too, into her hair, and layer it so I can show you. I like to bring the raw sienna in, like in the eyes. It just adds, instead of being too deep, it just brings in this beautiful movement into the eyes. So it's a little, this was kind of my focal point right here. I also used, for her mouth, I used raw sienna and burnt sienna and maybe a tiny bit of red. Thank you, Gigi. And so it just gives you this very natural feeling. You can just build up your layers, where when I'm working, I love acrylics, and you know I do. I do a lot of my abstract and floral work in the acrylics, and I can get different effects with them. But what I love about this is, first of all, I can slow down. I don't have to rush because they're going to dry. And if I don't like something, then I can just cover it up, kind of like pouring gesso on everything. So you just kind of, if you simplify your palette, I think you're going to have more success. So another blue to put into this mix that I use quite a bit is ultramarine blue. It's a really beautiful blue, and you can create another beautiful shadow with ultramarine blue and a little bit of, I don't want to overcomplicate this. That was not my intention, but I think we'll be fine. So I'll just put a little bit of, it's a little warmer. So you get this really beautiful orchid color. And if I added more blue, it will be more blue, but it's gorgeous. So just kind of think about your blues, limit your palette. But if you're going to be buying paint, I would definitely get the reds and get the earth tones, the burnt sienna and raw sienna, raw umber, burnt umber, all those earth tones, because you can bring those into everything and tone color down and make it kind of work to how you want it to be. Doreen Wheeler, hello, my friend from high school. How are you? Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see you. I want to cry. Hi, Heather. How are you? So it's like a reunion. I'm so excited. So anyway, I have to concentrate now. Okay, so we have a string of colors. We have some shadow. And then for her hair, I'm going to go back to her hair. So I'm excited to say I just sold this painting, which I'm very excited about. So I still have to do some work on her hair. So I think I mentioned this in my last live that, you know, I worked on this. There's only a certain amount of time in the class, and that I need to stand back and look at my work. And I think we're always trying to rush and get things done. And by stepping back and analyzing and contemplating your work, it kind of tells you what you need to do. So right now, when I critique this, what I see is I need to kind of work on her flower a little bit more, but her hair needs to have more light in it. So I'm going to work on that, and then I have to do a varnish over it. So, but overall, I'm pretty happy. And in this one, you know, I wanted this ethereal feeling and kind of create this porcelain color with her skin. And in this one, I wanted a little bit more contemporary feeling. And so that's why I didn't do red lips, and her cheeks aren't as pink, and it's, you know, a little bit more in that earthy palette. So you want to make sure that you just take your time. And if you get to a place that goes through an ugly stage, all paintings do, and you take your time, you do a layer, step back, keep adding, keep working, and you'll see me do that in the painting. All right, so I want to talk about hair. So I used Van Dyke Brown, and I took my little, if you remember earlier, I had a little jar of the odorless mineral spirits that I don't clean my brush in. It's just a clean one. The rags used to wipe your brushes off with the Gamsol, can they be washed and reused? Okay, you know, because this is a chemical, I do not wash them. I just keep working with them. I've cut them into small pieces and then I dispose of them. And there's a great article on Artist Network. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but they have really good suggestions for safe practices. I don't really have a problem. I just want to be very conscious of the environment, and that's why I try not to use the paper towels. And just, I will use this for like months, just keep wiping my brush off. And, you know, I have one and then I just fold them up and I keep them in a little plastic bag in my little box with everything, and it's fine. And then I go to my paint store and they will take it and they have a way of disposing of things safely. All right, so here's my clean mineral spirits. So see, it makes it very watery. So I'm gonna get a new brush here. So when I did the hair, I just dipped it in the clean mineral spirits, and then I just did a wash, much like you would do a watercolor wash, and I just built up layers just to block it in. So that's all I'm gonna do. And then I added some of the burnt sienna, and I also added a little bit of the raw sienna. And so it brings up, it keeps the hair from getting too flat. And so I'll be going through with some highlights in her area just to bring in more of this beautiful golden color. And you can do the same thing in black if you want black hair, and if you want blonde hair, you can use yellow ochre and raw sienna. I think what helps hair is if you can combine a dark, a mid-tone, and a light color that are in the same color family, if that makes sense. All right, am I forgetting anything? I think that's it. So we did our little skin tone. Oh, I know what I forgot. I want to just show you a couple more things as I've made a mess here, but this is my Cad Red, and it's very strong and you don't need much. So let me wipe my brush off, and I'm just gonna take a little. So when I did the mouth, I mixed the Cad Red, and it's this beautiful, beautiful red with the alizarin crimson, okay? Then, if you know, the crease of the mouth is always darker, so then I brought in a little bit of that blue mix and some of the oil, and I brought it into the crease of the mouth. Okay, and then you'll see me layer. I started bringing in just a touch. I'll go through with a very small flat brush and work around the face with yellow ochre and raw sienna, and just add like little touches to the lip just to add a reflection. And it just gives the mouth, I think, more interest when you add in some yellows and in just different colors and under the chin, just so it's has a little bit more plump feeling. And this one, here we go. You can see the colors. There's little touches. So I was very delicate with how I added the yellows and the blues into her mouth. And it just is really a pretty look. And then the final thing I do to bring in more highlights is I look at the painting and I look at where the highlights are in my reference photo, and that plane, and I like right here, this plane of her head was facing me this and this, and I try to bring out where that light is touching, and I just build it up and delicately kind of put it in. So I think that is it. So you don't need much. So do you feel less intimidated by, those of you who were intimidated by the oils, do you feel less, do you feel like it's an easier thing than you thought it was? I guess that's what I want to know. So let me know that. And if you have any questions, let me know. And I think I'm going to try and turn it around so I can say goodbye to you so you don't have to look at my messy desk. Let's see. All right, here we go. All right, let me turn it around. Okay, hi. All right, thanks so much for joining me on this. It was really fun to do. And oh, thanks, Maxine. I'm glad it's less intimidating, because just think you just need 2 items and your paints. You don't even need all the other stuff. So it's kind of a relaxing, I find painting in oils really relaxing, and that I can take my time, I can step away, I can come back. Oh, I'm glad it was super helpful. Thank you so much. I'm glad. And I don't think you need tons of stuff. And the fact that by Betty, I think that you can just leave it out for a couple of days and then just clean it all up. But check out the article on Artist Network just about keeping yourself safe. It's, not anything worse than painting with cadmium yellow, I guess. They always talk about that, and I don't have any problems. I'm good. Do you have a list of the oil paint colors and brands for us? I will write it and put it into the in both my creative community and on my page, the list. I think it's on Jean's website too, the list of colors. I can't remember what they added to that, but I will write that down too. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me. It was so fun to do it, and stay safe, get your paints out, don't be intimidated. It's only paint, it's only paper. You can do this. All right, bye you guys. Thank you.